Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, Say What's Real TV. This review is for Tyler Perry's Zatima Season 2, Episode 7, Mind Over Matter, now streaming over on BET+. So we open up the episode where we left off with Fatima running up the steps trying to catch Zach in whatever he was doing, only to find him in the bed using a side chick that she bought him. He looked at her like, what, you just gonna stand there looking? She's caught off guard, so she just busts out laughing. And he says, what, you think this is funny? Her phone starts to ring, and she basically tells him she'll leave him with his side chick to finish, as she's laughing all the way back down the stairs. So when Fatima answers the phone, it's Angela calling right back, trying to be nosy and get all the dirt, wondering what Fatima heard to make her hang the phone up. Fatima ended up telling her that it was Deja next door having sex. I'm glad she didn't go into details about what was really going on. You know how she liked to run it. So Angela was like, oh, I thought I had to come back over there and help you beat some behind. Like, Angela, sit down. You can't even handle Bryce, but you gonna come whip some tail for somebody else and they man, girl, sit down. So she tells Fatima, don't forget to mention to Zach about the whole dinner thing with Bryce. Fatima was like, fine, but she had to get off the phone. So Fatima, she goes back upstairs and she's up there teasing him, holding back her laughter. So Zach was like, oh, so you think this funny? Like, I don't see nothing funny. I'm just sitting here trying to take care of my needs because my fiance won't. Fatima told him, like, the way you've been acting, you really think I'm going to have sex with you? He said the way I'm acting, like, he don't see that he acted a whole donkey the day before. Like, nobody's going to come home to you coming out of some chick house that I got a problem with and done caught you twice, and then you got a hard on top of that. And I'm supposed to lay down and spread my legs? I don't think so. So yeah, Zach, you did the right thing by utilizing the side chick instead of a real female. So kudos to you for that. So he tells Fatima, go ahead on. Go on and do what you got to do, because she says she got to get ready for work. So she playfully says, well, how was it? He says, well, it was the best coochie I ever had. And of course, you know, she's like, oh yeah, for real. So she playfully hits him with the pillow or whatever. And he said, well, what, you bought it for me? She said, I know I did. Like, I don't think she had a problem with it. And he lets her know that it just doesn't squirt the way she does. Fatima says, I know. So Zach, he heads over there to the barbershop and he sees Mr. Tyrone. The two of them go have their little back and forth, little banter. And he asks him what he's doing there. He told him he wanted to see Tony. So Tony, he comes out and they dap it up. So Zach tells Tony that he wanted to have a talk. So they sit down and Tony is like, well, what's going on? You all right? Zach says, well, first, how are the shops doing? So we learned that Tony is running like 3 barbershops, and the one Mr. Tyrone is in is not doing as well as the other 2, but he keeps it open because of his father. So they get into Zach telling him that he just wanted some good advice and that he wanted a sound perspective coming from Tony, which that was kind of interesting. Tony, of course, was like, I got you. So Zach went into the whole thing of, you got to promise not to tell Nate. And every time they say that to one of their friends, it's just like, you might as well say, go ahead and tell the person, because they always do the opposite. Like, you might as well say, tell them, because they do it anyway. So Zach starts off about the whole thing with Fatima not having sex with him and how Deja called him, which I was surprised Tony didn't bring up the fact that Zach stood him up and never called him back, because the two of them were supposed to go to the club somewhere, but they didn't say anything about it. So when he said that he went over to Deja's house, Tony immediately got excited, talking about, oh shoot, I thought Zach had done came back. So that right there lets you know that Tony really wasn't the person to be talking to, because clearly that's what he wanted. He wanted you to have been with Deja. Like, that's crazy. So Zach goes into the whole thing about what happened when he got to Deja's house, how he was turned on, had the hard on and all that. And when he left out, Fatima was coming home, caught him in his sweatpants with a hard on. And Tony was like, well, what happened? How did she react? How did she respond? Zach said she didn't say a word. She didn't question him. And that was my thing. Like, she didn't say nothing. That surprised me. I thought it was weird. So Tony, he is shocked at that, because In the little short time that he has known Fatima, he knows that she probably will pop the hell off. And hearing that, he automatically tells Zach, oh, it's over, bro, it's over. And Zach was like, well, why you say that? He says, usually when a chick goes silent and don't say anything about that kind of stuff, that means they really don't care. They don't give a damn. So then Tony tells Zach that when Fatima would get upset and basically show her ass, he didn't say that, but that was her way of showing that she cared. And Zach looking all crazy and sad about it. And then Tony proceeds to give this little backhanded way of acting like Nate, talking about, oh, well, maybe it's for the best, being that this whole profile thing done popped up. So Zach had to nip that in the bud and let him know that's not her. So Tony then asked Zach, did he question Fatima about her getting out the car with the random dude? And Zach said he couldn't say anything because he had just got caught, mind you, the second time, coming out of Deja's house rock hard, plus the incident in the elevator with Paul. So that right there lets you know that Zach knows full well what Fatima is talking about when she says, I'm not giving you no sex because of the way you've been acting. Now he admits to Tony that he know he been acting like a fool, but he couldn't admit it to Fatima and can't see what she's talking about. But whatever. So when Zach brings up the whole elevator thing, Tony starts clowning, talking about how he was looking and the arm being twisted and this and that and the other. And Zach is looking like, wait a minute, how do you even know about that? So Zach didn't know that the video had gone viral. So he was like, man, I don't even know what to do anymore. So Tony, he got serious for a moment and he was like, real talk. He said, maybe you should step back a bit from the whole marriage thing and just take some time to yourself, just relax and think about your future long term, like what you really want to be doing. Like, you know, your sanity is important, your peace is important. And at the end of the day, if you're going to be with Fatima, be with Fatima. If you're going to be by yourself, just be by yourself. And, you know, Zach just was left, you know, thinking about it. So as Zach is leaving from out of the barbershop, Mr. Tyrone is following out behind him. So he sits down and he starts talking to Zach and he lets him know, look, if you want some sound advice, you need to stop talking to those young guys talking about Nate and Tony. And if you want wisdom, you need to talk to wisdom. So Zach said, well, give me some wisdom. He says, look, your girl, she's a good girl. Zach says, you don't even know her. Mr. Tyrone was like, I don't know her, but I hear them talking about her. I also hear them saying how they want to break you guys up. Mainly that Nate. And Zach was like, yeah, he really don't mess with her like that. He want me out here, you know, like him. So Mr. Tyrone was like, what, looking like a damn fool? He said, you too smart for that, champ. So Zach tells him that Fatima is not making it easy for him, and Mr. Tyrone says, are you sure that it's all her? Zach says, well, yeah, I got my own set of issues. And Mr. Tyrone tells him, well, you both do. And I will agree to that both of them have issues that are causing the problems in the relationship. So the bottom line was Mr. Tyrone told Zach, be very careful who you getting advice from, because if a person is constantly telling you what they would do and they haven't figured out their own shit, you need to run. So Zach, you know, he was very appreciative of the information, so he gave him dap and all that, and he ended up leaving. I'm really liking Mr. Tyrone's character so far. I think he is good for the guys, mainly Zach, and he is funny to me. So we see Fatima, she gets to Dr. Reed's office, the therapist, and as she's trying to sign in, tell me why Paul is standing there near the receptionist desk. He hears her and acts like, oh, what a coincidence. She's looking at him like, what are you doing here? He claimed he was there to meet a friend. And I'm like, no, something is up with that. Either the doctor told him that Fatima had her scheduled appointment, or somebody else did. And nobody else knew that but one other person. So Fatima, she thanks him for the recommendation for Dr. Reed, and he's like, no problem, asking her how she's doing, asking about Zach, bringing up that he might need a surgeon for his jaw. Fatima, she's apologizing for the whole incident, and he wants to know, has Zach raised his hand to her before? And Fatima looking at him like, that'll be a negative because I shoot. So he's like, well, where you from? She's like, don't worry about all that. So Dr. Reed comes out and Paul introduces them. And Dr. Reed tells Fatima that Paul said how beautiful she was. I'm like, that seemed a little bit unprofessional for him to repeat it, but okay. So Fatima is thanking him, knowing that he's busy, appreciates him taking her in. So the doctor then says that Paul said that it was a bit of an emergency. So Fatima looked at Paul like, oh, really? Like, why was it a bit of an emergency? So Paul, I don't know what he got up his sleeve. I still don't trust him. I don't know what him and Dr. Reed got going on, but it's something fishy going on. So Paul ends up giving Fatima his phone number, talking about he want her to keep in touch with him so he can know how things are going. Child, Fatima was like, no, I'm not doing that. Gives him the number back. So he ends up leaving. So Fatima, she gets back there and the doctor is asking her questions and she's basically telling him that if he just fixes Zach, because Zach is the problem, Zach has all the issues, Zach has this problem with his mom and that problem with this and that and the other. And the doctor looking at her like, what, because you don't have any issues. And she's trying to make it seem like she doesn't have problems. She doesn't need counseling, this and that and the other. Basically not taking accountability like we know she can do. And she tells the doctor that Zach is really not open to therapy. And he goes ahead, he agrees to taking Zach in for the counseling, but he also tells her he needs to talk to her as well because he needs to see how the two of them communicate. And he wants to know if he's not open for therapy, how am I going to be able to talk to him? So she comes up with the whole idea about him coming over for dinner. And he's hesitant at first because he says he likes the upfront approach, but it's a reason she asked him to do it that way, so he'll go ahead and do it. She said she'll send him over the information. So we go over there to Rise Ventures, and Bryce is sitting in there talking to Valerie. She looked a little different than me, but I guess it's the same actress. I was waiting for Zach to actually call her Shady Val, but he didn't. So he comes in and they present this project that's going to cost like $6 million. And Bryce is like, oh, I can put in one and you can put in two. And I'm looking at Bryce like, how you want him to put more money than you're putting in, and you're pressuring him like you the one want it that bad. Zach is like, look, I don't have the money. I don't have $2 million. And Bryce acting like he want Zach to pull it up out his ass or something. He keep telling you he don't have it. So Valerie, she ends up leaving. So Bryce asks Zach, do he want to go get some coffee, trying to make small talk. Zach was like, no, I don't. So Bryce was like, well, look, can we just put our issues aside and, this is a great deal? Zach tells him, I don't have any issues. I just don't have the money and I don't like being pressured. Bryce going on and on still like he's not getting it. He's telling him, well, can you at least think about it? Zach said there's nothing to think about. I don't have the money. Like, what part don't you understand? So you could tell Bryce is getting more and more frustrated with Zach. And he's like, well, you're just being real thick and thick-headed. And Zach is like, whoa, that is not what you need to be saying to me right now. Child, Bryce, that was going in one ear and out the other. He's like, so you wouldn't mind if I take this this proposal to Gary? And Zach looking at him like, no, I wouldn't. Like, I don't give a damn who you take it to. Just don't bring it to me. So Bryce looking like, oh, so you really not wanting to work with me ever again in business? And Zach says, look, I got a lot going on. I don't have time for this. This is not on my list of priorities. So Bryce got in his feelings about that. Like, what is up with Bryce? Like, what is going on? You got some kind of emergency that you trying to get money? Like, what is the problem? Child, Zach, like, can I go to my office now? Like, because I'm done. So we get over there to Fatima's office and Angela comes in and Fatima basically tells her it's a go for the dinner. She just needs a favor from her and wants her to call Dr. Reed and have him come with her to the dinner. That way it makes it seem as if he's her like extra guest with her and Bryce. So that way it doesn't tip Zach off in any kind of way. So she agrees to do that. And Fatima says now all she has to do is find a way to get Zach down to the dinner table. So for whatever reason, Tony and Nate decide they want to go see Zach at work and look at his office again. So they in there talking, and of course, Nate has to bring up Fatima's name and blames her for the reason that he has to now sleep on Tony's sofa. And Zach pretty much told him, look, I already told you she wasn't with the BS, and you know you weren't supposed to have Deja back there in the yard in the first place. So it is what it is. So they go through all that back and forth, and Nate ends up saying, I'm going to prove to you that this profile belongs to Fatima. So he pulls his phone out and he gets to pulling up the app, and he's texting the person, and he claims the person is texting back and hearting this and responding to this and says that they like to have sex in the parking lot and meet me in the stairwell at the job around a certain time. So they're trying to set whatever up, and they telling him, like, how are you using your own picture? Like, she would recognize you. And Nate was like, you really think I'm going to use my own picture? And you know who my wife is? And Zach said, well, exactly. Think about what you're saying. Do you really think Fatima would be using her own picture? Like, really? So all of a sudden, Zach gets a text message, and it's from Fatima saying, I'm going to be like an hour late. So now they all looking crazy like, we told you, like, and Zach was like, it's just a coincidence. So they like, we going to see, we got to find out if it's her. So they going to go to the little stakeout and be ready for the person and meet them in the stairwell to prove to Zach that that is her. And they told Zach to come with them. Zach was like, no, I'm not going. And they was like, whatever. Tony was like, it's not that I think it's her, but I got to go and, chaperone Nate just so he won't do nothing stupid. And basically them two leave, and Zach sat there on the end of the table and thought about it for a minute. I guess Zach was like, forget that. He grabbed his jacket and he hauled ass so he can go see what's going on. And that's where the episode ends. This was a pretty good episode. I did like the conversation between Zach and Mr. Tyrone. I like the fact that when Fatima went to see Dr. Reed, he did try to point out to her low-key that she does have issues as well, even though she didn't quite take heed. But I think if she gets to talking to him, maybe that'll come to light later on. What do you guys think is up with Bryce? Is he becoming unhinged? Is something wrong with him? What's going on that he is so adamant about Zach getting that $6 million proposal plan done? What is up with that? And why is Paul everywhere Fatima is all of a sudden? What's up with that? Drop down below and let me know your thoughts. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.